So after our East Coast adventure, we noticed some weaknesses in the suspension. So we partnered with SuperSprings International and we installed something that might just be the biggest game changer yet on the van. For the last few years, we have been driving our Ram ProMaster 3500. We've put something like 35,000 miles on it. And I have been upgrading it little by little. Just anytime that I can find something that can improve the van, improve its ride, improve the way that it looks, I'm always looking for those upgrades. And today, we're partnering with SuperSprings International. We've partnered with them before and installed the Sumo springs on both the front and rear of the van. They fundamentally changed the way the van drives, and I was absolutely stoked when we did it. Last fall on our East Coast trip, I did notice a few weaknesses or shortcomings in that the van rests directly on the bump stops all the time, and so the ride was a little rough. Now, it felt nice and secure, so there was no body sway, but there was really no suspension give, so the ride was pretty rough at times, which brings us to today. So I didn't actually feel comfortable making this video until I had tested this out for a good solid month. So back in November, I actually installed the SuperSprings on the van, and we have been driving it around, testing it out. So today, we're gonna walk you through the installation process and show you how easy that was. And then at the end, I'll give you my review. So the first thing that I had to do was actually modify the original install of my Sumo springs. So I actually took those off. There's two spacers that they come with. When I originally installed them, I put both of those in, and I actually took one of the spacers out so that there's actually a small gap in there now, an air gap, and they weren't fully engaged all the time. I think that's what made the ride a little bit rougher. Although it was nice and secure like in the wind, it just, driving down the highway wasn't very smooth. So modified those, took out one of the spacers and basically put those all back together. From there, it's pretty straightforward. You set the springs on top and you basically attach it. There's two bolts that you put on here. Basically, I don't know if you can see, but you unbolt this. There is a metal sleeve inside and this roller on the outside. And you basically put them in or attach them, bolt them all together. The biggest thing that you need here is you need to use a C-clamp. So you use a large C-clamp on each end and you basically, compress the spring, you put your bolt in. Now I elected to go kind of on the lowest setting, if you will. And that's primarily because the van's weight and ride is kind of how you determine. And so for us, this worked out really well. And basically set this, bolt this all back together, and it's pretty straightforward. And I did them on each side. And so you can see over on the other side, I did the same thing. I adjusted the Sumo spring, took out one of the spacers. So then I added in the Super Spring and basically bolted it together. It was really simple and straightforward. So play that footage. So sorry if that footage wasn't the best. It was a little difficult. I was trying to shoot it on my own, and honestly, using the GoPro, it's kind of a tough angle being underneath here where it's so small using a GoPro. So anyway, let's talk about the ease of installation. Personally, I thought it was pretty easy to install, especially kind of after that first kind of initial one that I got on, because just understanding, you know, where to position it, how much torque that it took to actually kind of compress the spring to get it to, you know, get on there so I could get the bolts in. Once that part was figured out, it was actually really, really easy to get everything installed. I will say it just took, I don't know if I'd consider it a specialty tool, but having a large clamp, you know, like an 8-inch C-clamp that you can really kind of tighten down and torque down, you know, that's probably the most critical component that you need. And so fortunately I had a great neighbor who loaned me one so I could actually get that done, because mine was only like a 6-inch and I needed a much bigger one. So let's see, after that, I think it was pretty easy to just, you know, do the second one, get everything installed. It went on nice and smooth, and it has been an absolute game changer having these on there. So now that we're not fully engaged to the bump stop all the time, you know, it doesn't feel quite as like rigid and blocky. I mean, that's the best word that I can describe it. You know, the axle and body felt like one component. So in the wind, it was really nice because you didn't get any body sway or anything like that. But boy, you hit a pothole and sometimes it just felt like the back of the van was like literally going to get destroyed because it was just so rigid and so stiff. So putting these SuperSprings on and taking out one of those spacers on the bump stop, now you've got a little bit more play. The spring actually kind of lifts up the body, and then the bump stop's not fully engaged all the time. And so you still, like if you hit something really big, you'll engage the bump stop and, you know, it'll be a softer impact, but you don't have the body sway and you get a little more cushion. So ultimately the ride has been absolutely amazing with this upgrade. And personally, I would recommend the Sumo Spring and the SuperSpring combo on every ProMaster. If you build out a van or you've, you know, bought one that's already built out, they make the van ride so nice and so much more comfortable. You just have to do it. You have to. It's just absolute game changer. Most of like the factory builds, sometimes you will get the Sumo Springs, like the bump stop upgrade, but I have not seen a factory build that has the SuperSprings. So after about 6 weeks of driving around with these, I would definitely recommend them. They're simple and straightforward to install, and they are worth every penny. So my final thoughts. The ride is so much better. You have a little more body sway, you know, compared to having just the Sumo Springs, but now you have the SuperSprings, which actually give you some increased load capacity in the van, and you still have the Sumo Springs to actually kind of, you know, be there to help support it. And at the end of the day, the ride is softer, more comfortable. We've got additional like weight capacity, and overall it just rides much smoother. And so there's one more upgrade in the books. Let us know, did you guys give it a try? Have you installed them? And what are your thoughts if you have? So one more thing that I want to share with you guys is that we are planning to go to the 2025 Florida RV Super Show in Tampa, and we are planning to do a meet and greet on
January 15th at 1 p.m.
On January 15th at 1 p.m. So the meetup will be at the show. We don't have all the details, so stay tuned. We'll definitely be sharing that with everyone. And one thing that we're also super excited about is we are partnering with Nuvo Vans and staying in one of their Nuvo lights, which is a layout that we are definitely interested in testing out, seeing if that's a layout that we like. Apparently they have a campground there, and so we'll be staying there for the week. So if you're in Florida and you have an opportunity to come to the Super Show, let's try to meet up. It'd be great to meet some of you guys. Until next time, bye guys.